Welcome back to the Film Train. I am Dennis Delamar, founder of GFF and your host tonight. We are talking about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That's right, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It came out on Netflix, and we're gonna dive into it and see what it's talking about. So Ma Rainey's is a play by August Wilson. And so if you're familiar with August Wilson, or if you're not familiar with August Wilson, he also wrote Fences, which Denzel Washington produced. If you haven't seen that, and actually Viola Davis was in that movie too. So this movie is about Ma Rainey. And so Ma Rainey is a singer in the 1920s, and she's looking to get her sound out there. She's looking to get her music out there, and she's very butch and brash, but we'll talk about her character in just a little bit, but that's the gist of the story. So now we're talking about the actors. We're getting into the actors, and we're talking about Ma Rainey, played by Viola Davis, right? And so right off the bat, we gotta address some things. We gotta flip over some rocks. Here at the Film Train, we don't hold no punches, and we relate things back to the truth because it is a scriptural show. And so one of the things that I felt like that was celebrated in the movie, in which we reject, is the lesbianism, the lesbian scenes and different things like that. We reject that in our community of truth. We reject that because we stand upon the scriptures in the truth of Yahushua, right? And so with that, I feel like it infused in her character this power that she had, which was emitting this fear of people that was around her. This really brash, almost manly type woman. And so that was one of the things I seen in her power existed in the context of her gift. And so one of the things that I did feel like with her is that it was intimidation. It was a lot of these different things in which she got through and got different moves made. And so it was outside of that topic, right? Outside of that the madness, right? It was her character was really, it was believable. But now when I get to Levy had so many levels, man. Levy had so many levels, and so many levels of trauma, which drove him to kill Toledo, which drove him to just the things he was saying, the blasphemy, really. And it was a couple times that I was like, oh, for a movie role, it's, like, I don't know where he got that from. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where he got that from, because some places he was going, it was so much of a oneness with that character that it was that character, and it was, in a sense, like, wow, like a couple times I was watching, I was like, wow, man, this is crazy. And so if I want to say who had the closest character that was most believable, I'll have to say Levy. But there's a lot of other things we got to talk about when we get to Levy, and we're gonna get to that in another segment. So we had Cutler, we had Toledo, we had Slow Drag, and their character just kind of filled in the gaps. They had different ideas and things that they had, as far as different discussions with Levy, because Levy was really, he was the oddball. He was the black sheep that was, at odds with everybody. So then we had Studevant, and then we had Irvin. And so their character they played their role. It was just a fit in, just that, basic role. It wasn't anything deep, but there are a lot of complex things with them because of a lot of manipulation. And it's so deep with the dynamics between Ma Rainey and her manager and Studevant, because even though she was just so brash and seemingly to the people around her so powerful, yet she was so weak, because they still was able to manipulate her to get whatever they wanted. So that brashness and that all that, bravado didn't add to anything. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at all those characters, I have to say that Levy had the the most believable role, with Ma Rainey. And I want to keep going, but I want to save that for later. So now let's talk about the cinematography. It was clean. I love the color. It's set in the early 1900s, and with the one thing I liked what they did, where when you would go outside, they had like I don't know, maybe they had like huge lights or sunbeam lights, and I felt like the atmosphere, because sometimes if you watch these movies, you'll see that lighting is one thing, but then the atmosphere is another thing. So that deals with color, that deals with all kind of things. And so the atmosphere was this, if I want to say the time, because when you lived in the early 1900s, when you lived during Jim Crow, the atmosphere was thick, and it was beaming upon you, and it was heavy. And so with that, you felt that when they were outside, you felt the sun beaming, you felt those things. And then one of the things that I think is memorable to me is Levy's, and Levy trying to get through that door. It showed how long that room was, and then we also saw a shot going up, and it just showed the emptiness that not only was in that room, but was in him when he got through there and seen it. And so I felt like that shot relayed the emptiness that was in Levy. And so you had different other moments of different shots, but there's nothing really that I really want to get into. So the cinematography was good, the color was good, I like the color, and so that's it for the cinematography. Well, now we're talking about Ma Rainey's, and we're getting into the message. What is the message of this film? How does it relate to black people? How does it relate to the black community? And so when I think about Ma Rainey and looking back at it, one of the things that caught me first, which we talked about earlier, is the lack of respect that she had for her own self. And one of the things is, from a scriptural point of view, when Yah has created us in a certain manner, and so when we go against that, it is disrespect to yourself, right? And so what happens is, when we get back to Ma Rainey, because she doesn't respect herself, people around her don't respect her, right? And she continues to disrespect people, even in the midst of those those situations, like the girl that she was with. She was even disrespecting her, and she still had this man type feel. And what it goes back to is the unbalance. When a woman is in a household coming up, and there is no man to foster the things that are righteous, that should be instilled into her, guess what she tries to become? She tries to become that man. And so this is what we see in Ma Rainey. You're out of position. And because you're out of position, you can be manipulated. You can be deceived. And that's how it happened in the garden, right? If you get out of the role, you're going to get deceived. And you will deceive yourself, right? And so this is what we have when we have this situation. And we have Levy, a person who has trauma within himself, is the only person to maybe just step to her. And so even though she had this manly type feel, she was still weak. And what I mean by that is that there's this thing in the black, and now we're relating the message, right? The message from that character is that you have to hold your ground, you have to be independent, you have to be strong, right? And you have to, outwit people. And what that is that stereotype it is what they call the Superwoman. And so the Superwoman is what is really celebrated in the black community. Okay, independent, the Beyonce situation, you know what I'm saying? It's that, thing to be looked up to, like, wow, this person is free. This person tell it like it is. This is that. But it's backwards. It's backwards. And we see that at the end. What is the end of this type of message? What the end of it is when she was talking all that, and she sold out to Mammon. And that's what it leads to, because this is the Willie Lynch in motion, is to demasculate the male, exalt the woman. And now we have a situation where the woman, she has no protection now, because now she's exalted, but the protection is lower. And so now she don't have no protection. And that's how she going to get manipulated. That's how she going to get deceived. Wasn't it what happened in the garden? It's the same thing. So all Studevant and them did was the same thing the devil always been doing, which is to enact the Willie Lynch formula. And so that's what I saw when we come to the message is once again, we'll say it. You have an independent woman, brash, disrespectful, manly, who gets things done by really the intimidation and the spirit of fear. Because just because you relay this fear and you relay this big brash character, don't mean you strong. You know what I'm saying? And that's the stigma that got to be broke down. And that's what we do at GFF is and through the Most High is to talk about those stigmas and allow these stigmas to be broke down. And so now we're going to segue into when the manager came and gave, and had the whole speech, and he wooed her to basically sell out. And this is what I wanted to get to, is that when those situations happen in the black community where there's no father, the woman is elevated. Now she is in this sphere of success because her power or her gift is now elevated, and we have people like these managers who are getting them through doors and stuff like that. We have a situation where she's exposed because she has no covering, right? And so now, because she is exposed, she will sell out to Mammon. Mammon had a really big deal in this film because Yahusha says in the word that you cannot serve two masters. You're either going to hate one or you're going to love the other. You cannot serve Yahuwah and Mammon. That's what was motivating her. Because even though she was saying she wanted to get her music out and she knew they was manipulating and everything like that, she signed that deal. You know what I'm saying? You came to get your record recorded because it was enticing. And that's what's happening every day in the black community, is people going to jobs, people making deals, people doing this because they think that Mammon is so powerful that if they don't serve it, how will they live? How will they sustain themselves? How will they eat? And that goes back to the curse in the garden. And what was the curse in the garden? It said, by the sweat of your brow, guess what? You will eat your bread. So that was the curse of Adam. But guess what? Yahusha has freed us from the curse. And you know why? Because when you read John chapter 6, he says, labor not for the food that perishes, but the food for eternal life. And I may not got that exactly right. So he also says, what is the true work? And the true work is belief in the one who was sent, Yahusha. Because when you truly believe in him, he will lead you in the path of righteousness, and he will be your sustainer. He will be your substance, and he will provide for you. And your main job is to believe. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's saying. Your main job is to believe, and he'll give you tasks to do. He'll give you tasks to work in this existence that we know. But so many people believe, and especially in the black community, that that's just what it is. That we just got to serve Mammon because there's no way out, right? But we saw what happens in Ma Rainey. What that happens is she lost part of herself. She already was losing it, but when she signed that last thing, and that's what we talk about when we go to Hollywood and we talk about people selling their soul. Yes, it's a transactional thing with spirits and demons and different things where in certain deals. I'm not saying everybody that do business, you know what I'm saying, you sign your soul away. When you know who you are, when you can feel it in yourself, and you make this decision to sell part of that away from Mammon, you just sold your soul. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is me, this is who I stand on, this is what I am, and you give a part of that away. They have that now. That's you just exchange some dollars for your soul, and now they have the essence of you. Now they had the song, they had the all the rights and stuff like that, and it's not even just about the intellectual property. It's about she lost her integrity. She lost all that, which was already gone. But you know what I'm saying. So this is what the epidemic is with that spirit of Mammon, and it's cold because and I know the writers didn't write it like this. But it's so cold because this is literally an expose of what that spirit leads to and what is happening in the black community when we come to those stereotypes that women that who are embodying the superwoman, is this is what it's going to lead to. It's going to lead to you selling the very thing which is your essence, which is your power, and which is your endowment that's supposed to be used by Yahusha, right? To bring life, right? And now you bringing death to yourself, and you bringing death around you, because we're going to talk about Levy now and see how that led to death, right? The message when it comes to that, summarizing that, is that people will do anything to sell their soul to mammon. Anything. So now we're gonna get on Levy. Oh my goodness. Man, you got a situation here. We got a situation on our hands. And we, like I said, no punches, no hiding under a rock. So when I was watching his character, when we talk about the message, what he was relaying, man, his character was actually similar to Ma Rainey's. It was really similar because, once again, it was the mammon. Once again, it's cold because it transformed into different things. And how it was getting him was the trauma, right? Because he told his story. He told about how, you know, his mother was getting raped, and, you know, she called out, you know, to the Most High, and, you know, apparently she still got raped, and that scarred him. And so when he's having this discussion with Cutler in Toledo, it's stirring that trauma up. It's stirring that trauma up because, you know, he's been in this thing with Ma Rainey. He ain't really been a part of the band, and we saw that. He ain't really been a part of the band. He's thinking in his back of his head, he like, man, I'm trying to get to where I'm trying to go. So he's using Ma Rainey as a stepping stone to get where he desires to go. And so when those conversations start having, you know, they start having these conversations and all that trauma starts to build up, what begins to happen is because you can't, if you ain't get healed from, only Yahusha can heal you from your trauma, right? You can suppress it, you can mix it up, and you can, you know, do drug sorcery, you can do anything you want to do, but until you get deliverance, it's still a situation. And so now we have a situation where it has built up. You know, whatever age that happened, it's coming back, and we see it rising. And so that it gets to the point where he's talking about that instance, and he's wondering why there was no deliverance in that. And then he's also been wondering why in his life, I mean, we really don't get into that, but why there is no deliverance in his life of the things he's going through, because he has this greed. And that's sometimes, on the sidebar, that's a very cold thing too, because a lot of people develop hate for the Most High because they have a wicked desire in their heart, and they're wondering why the Most High won't co-sign that desire. And so to them, they translate that as hate. Like, okay, why are you not answering me? You know, that's why one of his lines was, he said, where was your, you know, God when, you know, she called upon him and all this other stuff. And he starts blaspheming, and he starts talking about, you know, him selling his soul and all these different things. It gets back to Mammon. It gets back to his thing was summed up in a message of, by any means necessary, you have to succeed. You have to get to the next level. You have to, when that trauma started building and he couldn't take it, and he killed Toledo, it was a very poignant moment of all his trauma coming back. And this message relates to, you know, our brothers in the streets. It relates to men, right? Because his character was a man. And what it was that door, right? That door. He was trying to get through that door. And that door was the desire of success, the desire of whatever that picture is you have in your head, because that's what he had. He had this picture in his head of who he was supposed to be and how it was supposed to happen, you know? And so when you saw that he had expectations of those things. And so when he tried to get through the door, he was trying to get through the door, and then he broke through the door, but then it was empty. It was nothing there. And because that's what vanities are, right? The vanities is getting there and be like, dang, this ain't nothing, right? And so same thing with Mr. Studevant. He's talking to him, okay, oh yeah, Mr. You said I was gonna get my songs, and you know, it's time, you know, you're gonna pay me, you know what I'm saying? And he having this whole speech with him, but it wasn't what he thought. And so that's what mammon do. That's what deception do to you, is it make you have this vision of what you think it's gonna be like, and then you get through the door and it's not that, right? And then you develop, then you snap, right? Because now you've been deceived, and people get mad because I put my everything into this. I invested all my time, I invested all my effort into this, and so now somebody got to pay, right? And so his whole thing was somebody had to pay, not just because of Studevant, not just because of Ma Rainey. Somebody had to pay for that trauma, right? Somebody had to pay from what, because he felt like where was the Most High when that was happening. So his character was very complex, and I want to get into another level of the complexity of his character. And because we got one message, one surface message, which is by any means necessary, you know, you have to succeed, you have to do these things, you have to try to get to your vision. And we saw what that led to. It led to destruction, right? So it's a way that a man think of right in his heart, but it ends in destruction. The next part is Mr. Chadwick Boseman. And we know that he passed away. And this is no disrespect to his family or anything like that. I remember when he passed away, and it was like, wow, you know, like it just caught you by surprise. And one of my first impressions, and I have to share this, one of my first impressions when I was watching Levy's character is it was so real to me in the sense that I really felt like that was him. And when I say that, like I mean that, like I meant that, I mean, just as a director, you don't see those type of levels of connecting with the character and becoming a character. You don't really see, I mean, like rarely. I mean, even though Denzel, like I'm just giving you an example, even though Denzel is a great actor, and as a director, it's like, yo, he plays some good roles. But I'm talking about like a role to where like, no, this is this dude. Like you know, it takes you out of the watching a movie and all this other stuff. And so through prayer and different things, I really felt like that was Chadwick's character. And what I mean by that on a deeper level is that, you know, around the time, if you don't know, you can go back and do some research. Around the time of Black Panther and all these things, you know, he was diagnosed in that area. I can't really get the year, but it's in that time frame. And so when you look at it, Black Panther was a gem, so to speak, in the Black community and was very celebrated. And as a movie, you know, the aesthetics and different things, but the message of that movie was not one of the scriptures. And what I mean by that is, the scripture says that if you draw somebody away to worship another mighty one, back in the day, that person will be stoned to death. They will be killed because they will be drawing people away from Yahuwah. And so when you look at Black Panther was a character that got his power from an Egyptian mighty one, right here that I put on the screen. And also the flower and all these different things that, and so what we have that he is getting his power from a demon, basically. We just want to say, if you just say it outright, he's getting his power from a fallen angel, right? And so this is influencing a lot of different people. And so I believe the backstory of what has been revealed to me, that the backstory of Boseman's character was why I felt like that when I was watching Levy is because when the whole thing with him getting the student event, I felt like was behind the scenes of him trying to get to this level. He was promised something. Mr. Student promised, oh, you promised me you said I could record the songs, right? And so what happens a lot of times with the Hollywood and the spirits that are in Hollywood is they will promise you certain things. They will open certain doors, and now you have success, or now you have these things, and now you thinking that, okay, well, yeah, man, now I can, yeah, I'm trying to get my, this on. That's the same thing, because the student thing was the same thing with the door. It was an opportunity and a place that he was trying to go, but he couldn't get there. And so I felt like that was his real life, is that there was a place that he wanted to go, but he couldn't get there. And because of the trauma, because of the different things, it led to a very, how do you say, tragic end. And so we're not going to touch too much on that, but that was my thing when it came to Levy's character. And even to because I know as just an actor and as a writer, it was very hard. I would think it would be very hard to blaspheme the Most High in that type of character. And that character didn't have no kind of, sometimes you have character arches where you have a bad character, and then he, they flip the character and it has a good ending, but he didn't have no good ending. And this is very strange to take that type of role, but I would say it wasn't strange because I believe that was true to life. So we'll just leave it at that. So one of the things with both of these characters, because now we hitting them both when we're talking about the message, is we have Ma Rainey on one hand, who felt like she was retaining power, right? And then you had Levy on the other hand, who felt like he was about to get some power, right? And both of these individuals deceived themselves. And that's just the cold part about the serpent, right? Is it will make you believe that, okay, it's right through this door. You know what I'm saying? That's what the thing was with him. It's right through this door. Okay, it's right through, you know what I'm saying, the power. And what it was the fear. Because he had fear and she had fear. She had fear that everything that she was, she would no longer have because she would give it to somebody else. And she did, right? And he had fear, Levy had fear because he feared that, which is cold, this is cold right here, is that Studevin was his vision for a way out, right? So when that respect that he had for that wasn't there, he wanted the power, because remember, he was going to Studevin to get the power, right? But since he couldn't get the power there, he felt like to take somebody else's life and his own brother, right? And I mean brother in the sense of, a black man, that was his power. And the cold part about it, it's like the thing where black men or black women will like, curse somebody out, you know what I'm saying, their own family out, or, smack their own family or kill their own family. But then somebody that's abusing them, somebody that's doing, manipulating them and doing all this stuff, but they esteem in their eyes because to them that is their savior, right? And so what we saw in Ma Rainey and what we saw in Levy is this white savior situation, and them scared to step up, them scared because of the trauma in both of their lives, scared to take authority over this false Messiah. They thought that power was exclusive and was in the hands of the European, right? Man, Studevin. And this is when you relate this to, and that's the message, really, is that they felt like the power, that they had the power and they had to get it from them, right? Because if it wasn't the case, they wouldn't even be in this scenario. They'd be like, man, we don't even need our records, man. We find a way to produce them ourselves, right? That's what the Black Wall Street was on. That's what, GFF is talking about, is getting out of this mind state that we feel like that this group of people, right, is in order to succeed and have success, that we have to get power from them first in order to be accepted by people, in order to get our gifts and talents to the world, and whatever the case, whatever little thing you're looking at. And that's the thing that's happening in Black people, in which we have to realize that the power is in the Most High, Yahuwah, our Creator. That's where the power is, right? Our Elohim, which means mighty power. And so until we realize that, we will, continue to try to find it in other places, and we'll always have the same kind of end that they had, because you can't get power in a man. It's just not real power, and real liberation and all that we're looking for is not going to be in another man. And we have to understand that there is only one Savior, right? And he said it was finished when he was on a tree 2,000 years ago, and he rose from the dead with all power, and he's given us access. He's given us access to what? Luke 10:19, I love it. Yahushua has given us power to tread on scorpions, over serpents, and over all the power of the enemy. So here we are at the end, at the finale, and we talking about the thing that we do here at the Film Train. We talk about if these films are taking us forward or are they taking us back. And so I gotta say that this film, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, is taking us back. So why is this film taking us backwards? One of the main things is when we have certain films like this, it's just really complex in the way it's delivered. And the way it was delivered, I can't see us really, especially when we're not exploring those depth things. And a lot of these movies, and I'm not trying to, go there and, beat the director up or, the writer. But a lot of the time when we have these type of movies, we don't explore the deeper things that are causing these things and have some kind of, commentary or solutions on these things. We just put it out there, and it can be going into this cycle. And this cycle is where we call the kettle black, but we knew it was black. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of times with Black movies, it happens like that, where it's like, okay, we know this, but what is the deeper issues which drive these characters to these situations, and how can we talk about that? How can we get better at that? And so to just leave that out there and to just present this, I think it does a disservice to where we need to go as a people, because we need to really understand these archetypes and these stereotypes, and what they bring versus them being celebrated. I had fun. I know it was intense. I know we went, different levels and everything, but I hope you enjoyed yourself here at the Film Train. Man, we're gonna continue this thing, Most High willing, and we're gonna see what's next. Hey, if you enjoyed this, I need you to please share it. Please tell your friends. Hey, if you seen Ma Rainey, you know somebody that's seen it, or maybe you didn't, you felt some kind of whole nother way, drop your comments in the section, man. Just let me know. Also send your request in, and we'll go from there. But I enjoyed sharing with you, and so may the Most High, Yahuwah, and His only begotten Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahushua Messiah, bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you. We out of here.